A Virginia landlord lost 2/3 of his eviction income when the eviction moratorium was passed, not because the tenants couldn't pay, but because they chose not to. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. All right, so I have an interesting article for you today, and it's another one of those personal stories of the experience a landlord had during the eviction moratorium with their tenants and with, all of the nonsense with, the rental assistance program, etc. Now, I like to bring these stories up to let you know, hey, this is the consequence of the actions that the government took, okay? A lot of landlords lost tens of thousands, if not millions of dollars in the case of large landlords, and they'll never get that money back. Okay, when you tell a tenant that, hey, you don't have to pay rent, whether they lost their job or not, guess what? A lot of them are just going to stop paying. And that is exactly what happened to this landlord here. And it's really a bad situation. I just like to get this kind of story out, though, so that people know, hey, this is real. We're real people. We deal with this sort of situation. And a lot of landlords, they didn't survive, okay? They didn't make it through all of the pandemic-related stuff. Some of us are still going through eviction moratoriums and, all the bureaucracy involved with rental assistance programs, etc. right now. And some landlords might still fail going into the future based on the huge hit they took in the last couple of years. So before I get into the article, go ahead, hit the like, subscribe button, maybe leave a comment down below, and let me know about you, okay? Did you suffer during the eviction moratorium? Have you been able to make a comeback since then? Okay, have you, suffered financially to the point where, you had to sell your properties or, make significant cutbacks or take a huge chunk of your personal savings out in order to keep your business afloat? I like hearing these stories. I want to see them in the comments because, it lets us know that, hey, landlords, they didn't get away scot-free. And regardless of what, everyone says about, oh, you guys made so much on your properties and all that, no, it's not true, okay? Especially for the small landlords. They really barely made it through all of the nonsense. So, this article is coming from the richmondfreepress.com, and that's Richmond, Virginia. And it says, when tenants don't pay, eviction is the price, says one landlord. And let's get into it. Landlords are in trouble too, according to Bobby L. McIntosh, who is in charge of 109 units in Richmond through his company Bayside Properties and Management. So many tenants are not paying rent, Mr. McIntosh said. Apartment owners are hard-pressed to cover the costs they face, from utility bills and maintenance to lawn care and their own loans from banks. While evictions seem heartless, he said, owners and management firms often have no choice but to remove those who do not pay as agreed. When you have a number of tenants not paying, it just becomes unaffordable. And it very much does become unaffordable. Like I said before, even if you have your, I forget what they called it, but basically you have your mortgage payments or your loan payments paused, right? Because they were allowing people to do that for a while. You still have to pay for your utilities. You still have to pay for all your maintenance. If you are like me and you have property management, you still have to pay your property management company. You have to pay your insurance, okay? There are a lot of costs involved in keeping a property up, okay? And simply put, if you don't have any rental income coming in, you can't pay those bills unless you are pulling it from your personal reserves. And that is what a lot of landlords were doing. They were just pulling that money out of their own pocket. And, in other stories I've covered, I've talked about how landlords had to, sell the property at a loss because they weren't getting any rental income. They've had to go and get second jobs. Some of them even declared bankruptcy. I mean, this is how bad it's gotten. It's just, it's an awful situation to be put in. But, let me continue. A transplanted New Yorker who has mastered construction and finance, Mr. McIntosh cites the example of the two largest complexes he manages for Tom and Joe Volker of TJC Realty, a 28-unit complex at 401 East Brooklyn Park Boulevard and a 26-unit complex in the 4300 block of North Avenue. He said renters in those complexes had a good record of paying. Before the pandemic hit in March 2020, both complexes might have had 1% of tenants who were in arrears, he said. But after the pandemic arrived, rental payments almost ceased from the majority of tenants. even though their rent of $750 to $850 a month for a 2-bedroom unit is among the lowest in the area. Yeah, so almost all the tenants, the majority of the tenants within these two apartment buildings, a 26 unit and a 28 unit, stopped paying rent as soon as the eviction moratorium was started. Now, I don't blame people, who immediately were put on lockdowns. Okay, so a lot of states, they had these ridiculous lockdown orders. They told people you can't go to work, you cannot go to work, etc. I don't blame them for, suffering a little bit of financial loss while those lockdowns were in place. Those lockdowns did not last for 2 years though, okay? The stay-at-home orders, the lockdowns, etc. lasted a few months, and after that point, things started to get back to normal. People started going back to work. At least they should have, okay? They should have started going back to work, and then they should have been able to pay their bills going forward. And that is what, everybody expected. But instead, tenants realized, hey, they didn't end these eviction moratoriums, and the government is planning, passing out free money to pay my rent, so I'm not going back to work. I'm not paying anything else, and I can't be evicted. I get to live here for free. And that is exactly what they did, okay? And that's a stupid thing, they had no clue what they were doing when they put these rules in place, and that they never planned that people would actually abuse the system and take advantage of it to live for free. I mean, you're saving, quite a bit of money, hundreds if not thousands of dollars every single month where you don't have to pay rent. And, that's very tempting to do, especially as a low-income person, okay? Especially knowing they couldn't be evicted. But after the pandemic arrived, rental payments almost ceased from the majority of... Oh, I already read that. We had people riding through neighborhoods with signs and bullhorns telling people they didn't have to pay the rent, that the government would take care of it, he said. I would go door to door to tell people that wasn't so, but they preferred to believe what they heard on the street. It was unbelievable. He said the state rental assistance has picked up some of the arrearage after he and tenants got through the red tape, and also provided up to 90 days in forward payments. But he said tenants did not resume paying rent after receiving the rental assistance, and only added to the backlog of rental debt, even though most were working. So yeah, so basically the rental assistance program would pay back rent of up to 12 months plus forward 3 months, so about 15 months to landlords, okay? And the problem was, though, after that, the 15 months or whatever, the tenants did not resume paying the rent. They just started accruing more debt, and you still weren't allowed to evict them. Okay, that is how stupid the whole eviction moratorium and rental assistance program nonsense was. Okay, this tenants realized, hey, all my past debts are gone, but I can still stay here for free. So why wouldn't they? They're gonna take advantage of the situation. And in his case, and he says he has some of the cheapest rents in these two buildings of anywhere within the area. So I imagine that the way that the tenants are looking at it is, hey, we'll save all this extra money, and then if they ever do end this eviction moratorium, we'll take our little bit of extra cash down to somewhere else, and we won't even have to face eviction at that point. We'll just leave, and that it's crazy. But don't act like these tenants are dumb. Don't act like all these tenants are 100% honest, and don't want to try to scam the system as much as possible, or scam the landlord as much as possible. Even if only 10% of tenants are actually trying to screw a landlord over, that is a significant amount of money that can be lost. And they had no plans for what to do in that sort of situation. So instead of collecting more than $17,000 a month in rents from each complex, he said he's been lucky to collect $5,000 a month, and far less on many months. And until recently, courts were shut down and evictions barred by the state and federal governments. We couldn't get people out, he said. We were stuck. With the market for apartments remaining strong in Richmond, he said that he and the owners have no choice but to pursue evictions in order to find new tenants who will pay. Yeah, they were collecting less than a third of the rental income that they were due 2/3 of their tenants weren't paying them. And even after they got the rental assistance, all they're doing is accruing more and more debt. So fortunately, though, the eviction moratorium within the state is over, and they got the eviction courts back open. They can go through the eviction process, get these people out of there. And they're like, but you took the rental assistance. How dare you evict us now? It's like, you owe us more now, okay? We got paid for 15 months. It's been 2 years. It's been 24 months since all this nonsense began, right? So you actually owe us 9 months of rent, or more than 9 months. Hell, it's been, I'm trying to think here, because it's August now, right? It started in March. So, you owe us a lot more. You owe us over a year worth of rent at this point, okay? And if you're not willing to pay the money that you owe, you've got to go. Okay, that is it. I cannot keep you in here. I cannot pay your bills for you. I, as a business owner, am not a charity. These people who own these apartment buildings, they're not a charity. They're not a social service provider. And the fact that the city and these tenants expect them to operate as one is ridiculous. Okay, and I've always said that. So, horrible story coming out of Richmond, Virginia. I do like to highlight these stories, though. This landlord is still going through the financial consequences of the eviction moratorium. Here we are 2+ years later.